NFL Week 10 power rankings. We are over the halfway point. It's time to start looking towards the playoffs and the Super Bowl. I'm going to start, as I always do, with my screen of respect. These teams did not crack my top 10. I'll explain why they didn't. I love these teams. I wanted to fit them in there, but I just wanted to keep it at 10 this week. I'm going to start with the Cleveland Browns coming off a bye week. They get Nick Chubb back. I'm not exaggerating when I say I think Nick Chubb might be the best running back in football. I know Kareem Hunt is there. Everybody's talking about, the split share. Maybe Kareem Hunt's the better running back for fantasy purposes. Let me tell you, on the field, Nick Chubb is the better running back. I think it's going to be huge to have him back, but what I'm worried about for Cleveland is what are they going to do at wide receiver? Odell Beckham's presence on the field was important. His double moves, his ability to blow the top off the defense. Can they replicate that with a Jarvis Landry or Rashard Higgins? I don't know. I want to see that. The one game that they did play without Odell Beckham, it was the wind game where the wind was blowing like 3,000 miles per hour against the Las Vegas Raiders. I didn't want to get into it. We didn't really get any answers. So anyway, Cleveland Browns, I like them quite a bit. We'll see what they're going to do. They're 5-3, and the Bovada odds for them are at plus 3,500, so that's roughly 35-1. Not bad for the Cleveland Browns. Now, the Los Angeles Rams also coming off a bye week. They have a huge game against Seattle this week. They've fallen off the list in recent weeks. Hey, if they beat Seattle, they get back on the list. Of all these teams that I'm going to be talking about today in this thing, I think there's probably like 3 teams that I think have a real chance at winning the Super Bowl. The Los Angeles Rams are one of them. So that just goes to show you, I think they have Super Bowl capability this year. They're not inside my top 10 at this point. That's because some other teams are just outplaying them. So kudos to the Los Angeles Rams. Bovada Sportsbook has them at plus 4,000 to win the Super Bowl. That is roughly 40-1. Next one, the Arizona Cardinals. I had to drop them from this list. I wanted to keep them on, but I had to drop them because they lost to the Miami Dolphins. I'm just being honest here. I think the Arizona Cardinals slightly outplayed the Miami Dolphins, but when it came down to it, the Miami Dolphins defense, which is completely underrated, made plays when they had to. They forced them off the field on turnover on downs, and they scored a touchdown on defense. That counts on the scorebook, everybody. Their defensive touchdowns, and they're scoring one every week. It made an impact in this game. The Cardinals, it was out there for them. They could have sent it to overtime. So I know Cardinals fans, you want them to stay in the top 10, but the bottom line is they didn't beat the Miami Dolphins, and that's why Miami Dolphins earned their way into the top 10 this week. Bovada Sportsbook has Arizona at plus 5,000-1 to win the Super Bowl. Look, their defense is good. Kyler Murray is playing incredible. He's overshadowed right now by some of the other star quarterbacks, specifically like Russell Wilson inside his own division. But Kyler Murray is doing everything that Lamar Jackson did last year. Look at the stats. Look at his impact on the record. They are for real. The Cardinals are for real. The Cardinals could win the Super Bowl this year. Would not shock me if they represent the NFC. It's starting to open up and be wider, and they did beat the Seattle Seahawks. So the Arizona Cardinals, I respect them quite a bit. Once again, Bovada has them at plus 5,000-1. They need more respect than that, everybody. So there you go. The next one, the Las Vegas Raiders. They keep taking care of business. They have the Denver Broncos. They can take care of business again and go to 6-3 this week. They've beaten the Cleveland Browns, I mentioned in that wind game. They've beaten the Kansas City Chiefs this year. They have really nice wins on their resume. My big question is the defense. Raiders fans, you know it. I know it. It's the defense. Can they really hold up in the playoffs when it comes to it? I don't know, but I've been betting the Raiders and betting on them to cover the spread for about a year and a half now because people keep on looking over them, and they continue to look over them. The Raiders are for real, everybody. I love the way they play football, and Derek Carr is playing the best football of his career. He has really taken a step forward this year, and they needed it with some of the injuries at wide receiver they've had throughout the season and in the offseason. Las Vegas Raiders are for real. Bovada Sportsbook has them at plus 4,500 to win the Super Bowl. Last team on the screen of respect here, the Indianapolis Colts. I wanted to fit them in, but they lost this last week. It's not only because of that. I just had to get some other teams in there. The Indianapolis Colts, their defense is for real. They can make teams one-dimensional. They can shut down the run. The big question here is the offense, specifically at wide receiver. I'm keeping a very close eye on Michael Pittman. I think he could have a major impact on this team. Michael Pittman Jr., the rookie wide receiver, he could put the Colts over the top inside this division. We're going to get the Thursday night game against the Tennessee Titans. They could very easily be back on this list. Bovada has them at plus 2,500 to win the Super Bowl. So in terms of all these teams here, the screen of respect, the best odds to win the Super Bowl according to Bovada, the Indianapolis Colts, and it's because of that defense, and Phillip Rivers is playing a little bit better week by week. This team is one to watch as we close out the season. Now let's get to the top 10. The number 10 team on my list is the Miami Dolphins at 5-3. They keep beating good teams. They've beaten the Rams, who are on my screen of respect. They've beaten the Cardinals, who are on my screen of respect. They continue to win. And before last week, before the Arizona Cardinals really gave them a run, they were the number one scoring defense in the league. You got to reward defense. And Tua did fantastic against the Arizona Cardinals. I'm not going to say he outplayed Kyler Murray because Kyler Murray's on another planet right now. But in his first real start, and he didn't really have to play against the Los Angeles Rams because the defense just put that game out of reach so early. Into his first real game against the Arizona Cardinals, a heavy blitzing team, he looked the part. I'm really encouraged by the Miami Dolphins. I've been betting them for since the back half of last year. They play hard. I think they're very well coached, and I think they're going to continue to get better. So the Miami Dolphins are for real. You can see Bovada has their odds to win the Super Bowl right now at plus 8,000, which isn't fantastic, but you know what? Given that they're a young team and they're getting better, that's fine. They are going to be competing with the likes of, say, the Las Vegas Raiders and the Indianapolis Colts and maybe the Tennessee Titans, depending on what happens in that division, for playoff spots and wild card spots. And you know what? They're only one behind in the loss column right now to the Buffalo Bills, who are a little bit higher on them on this list, and they're going to have another rematch there. So Miami Dolphins are for real. Number 9, another Florida team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, coming off a very, very ugly loss to the New Orleans Saints. That's 2 losses to the Saints. And sometimes when the Saints are up, and specifically the secondary, when they're really motivated, the Saints can make the day long for anybody. Michael Thomas was back in that game, and the Saints just blew the doors off the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Saints probably were tired of hearing about how good the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were, and they're the best team in the South. And sometimes, the Tampa Bay, you just run into a game like that. I have no doubt that Tampa Bay is going to come out on fire this week. They're one of my teams. They have a great defense. They have a great offense. The offense didn't show up against the Saints. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers could win the Super Bowl. They have Super Bowl pedigree on their roster. Maybe a little bit young, maybe a little bit immature outside of, say, quarterback, right? They have to make some improvements and get more consistency out of the wide receivers. But this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team is very good. You can see Bovada respects them quite a bit. Their odds to win the Super Bowl are at plus 1,000. So keep an eye on them as we close the year. Number 8, the Tennessee Titans. They've been sputtering just a little bit, but they got that nice win against Chicago. It's hard to move the ball against the Chicago Bears defense. The Tennessee Titans did so. They rebounded off that weird loss to the Cincinnati Bengals, but I feel like that Cincinnati Bengals game was a trap game anyway. I actually called the Cincinnati Bengals to cover the spread, but Tennessee to win. Well, Cincinnati covered the spread, and Cincinnati won. Well, Tennessee is back. They have a huge game against the Indianapolis Colts. If they can win that game and go up 2 games on the Indianapolis Colts, and I believe that would be 2 games in the head-to-head tiebreaker. I think they played and Tennessee won earlier in the year. I could be wrong on that. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I believe Tennessee, if they win that game, they really take firm control of that division. Huge game this week. You can see Bovada has them at plus 2,200 to win the Super Bowl. So still not getting the respect, in my opinion. But it's because of the defense. The defense isn't playing incredibly well yet. They need to fix that up. But there are a few teams higher on them on this list that frankly need to fix that as well. Number 7, although I look at it and I kind of laugh into myself now, the Buffalo Bills are at number 7. They're playing a little bit better than the Tennessee Titans, though. To be fair, Tennessee Titans, I know you're banging your fists on the table right now. The Tennessee Titans beat the Buffalo Bills just a couple of weeks ago. If I was going to redo this list, I could think you could definitely make the argument that Tennessee should be higher just based on that head-to-head win. But again, based on what I saw against the Seattle Seahawks, the Buffalo Bills looked great. I've had questions. I've been punishing the Buffalo Bills in recent weeks and pushing them down on this list because I was wondering, have teams figured out Josh Allen? Have teams figured out this offense? Well, I wanted to see them prove it against the struggling Seattle Seahawks defense, and they did it. So there you go. Buffalo Bills, number 7. Number 6 on my list, the Green Bay Packers, 6-2. My question for them is their defense at times. You can run on this defense, and teams that have a good running game, like a Seattle, when they're at full strength, teams like, say, even the New Orleans Saints are ahead of them on this list. The Green Bay Packers, they can give up rushing yardage. We've seen it most notably against Dalvin Cook and the Minnesota Vikings. The Green Bay Packers need to fix that up, but their offense, when Aaron Jones is back, is fantastic. I've seen 2 weird losses from them. I don't love the weird losses. The Minnesota and the Tampa Bay loss, they didn't look great in either one of those, although the Minnesota game was closer at the end of it there. But the Green Bay Packers come out, handle business against an injured San Francisco 49ers team, as they should. Bovada likes the Green Bay Packers. They're at plus 1,800 to win the Super Bowl, which is roughly 18-1. Although I will say it's amusing. I was looking at the odds. They have Dallas at plus 1,800. They have Philadelphia at plus 1,800. They have Seattle at plus 1,800. Let me tell you, the Green Bay Packers and Seattle Seahawks are much better than both the Philadelphia Eagles and Dallas Cowboys, for crying out loud. Number 5 on my list, the New Orleans Saints. I was flirting. They might have even made the list last week for the first time in weeks. Suddenly they're 6-2, and I've been saying this since they lost to the Las Vegas Raiders on Monday Night Football early in the season. People have been selling on them, but as I was talking about earlier in the Screen and Respect, the Las Vegas Raiders are pretty good. The New Orleans Saints, they were playing most of this year without Michael Thomas. They get him back, and then they put up 38 points. I mean, the New Orleans Saints are back to full strength. They're getting healthier when a lot of other teams are getting more and more injured. Pay attention to them. They really kind of took control back in that division, in my opinion. They put it on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now they're up 2 games in the head-to-head on Tampa Bay, so even if they finish tied, the New Orleans Saints would get the tiebreaker there. That is the first tiebreaker. So New Orleans Saints, they were my second favorite team in the NFC to start the year. At this point, I think they've gone back to my second favorite team in the NFC. So good for the New Orleans Saints. They're playing great football. That's when you want them to peak, in the back part of the year, not the early part of the year. 6-2, and Bovada has them at plus 1,000 to win the Super Bowl. So lots of respect for the New Orleans Saints. Number 4 on my list, the Seattle Seahawks. Now, coming off the loss, let me say this, Buffalo fans, we're getting to the time of year where teams have beaten other teams, and a team lower on this list has beaten another team head-to-head. Buffalo played incredible football. They earned that win. They were the better team. Seattle, Russell Wilson. Let me say this for Seattle on behalf of them. When Chris Carson was ruled out of that game, I thought Seattle was going to be in trouble, because the way you attack Buffalo is you attack with a physical running game, and the guys that Seattle had behind them just can't reproduce what Chris Carson can reproduce. So what did that do? That made Seattle one-dimensional. That made them test the sidelines and up the field, and the cornerbacks. That's the strength of the Buffalo Bills defense. Lo and behold, Russell Wilson turns the ball over, I believe, 4 times in that game. That's not going to happen every week. I think on a neutral field at full strength, Seattle and Buffalo, they're very similar teams. I'm going to keep Seattle as a top 5 team. I still believe that they're the best team in the NFC. But New Orleans, their defense is playing better than Seattle's, and their offense is starting to match Seattle's. So this could flip. Seattle, it's time to really show up defensively, for crying out loud. I'm sick of waiting for it. Seattle Seahawks, decent against the run, awful against the pass. That needs to be fixed. They are 6-2, and as I said, along with Green Bay and for some reason Philadelphia and Dallas, Bovada has the Seattle Seahawks at 1,800, plus 1,800 to win the Super Bowl. That is roughly 18-1. Number 3 on my list, the Baltimore Ravens. They are playing fantastic football. They are 6-2. They're at plus 700. They beat the Indianapolis Colts, who I like quite a bit. I still have reservations about how many points they can put up if they're playing from behind. Look, when they're running and they're running all day, they can put up 30 points on anybody. When they're behind 2 scores in the fourth quarter, can Lamar Jackson push the ball down the field, fit the ball into tight windows, 25 yards on and out and stuff like that? That hasn't been his game. Can he basically put that together the last part of the year? He's going to need it in the playoffs, but for right now, you got to say Baltimore. Their only 2 losses are against the top 2 teams on my power rankings. They're an amazing team. They play great defense. They play great offense. They can run the ball. They're great on special teams. They're just good everywhere. I like the Baltimore Ravens quite a bit. They are at plus 700, according to Bovada, to win the Super Bowl, so Bovada likes them as well. Number 2 on my list, who is it going to be, Pittsburgh or Kansas City? Well, Kansas City didn't have a great win against Carolina. I know Carolina is underrated, but I was expecting Kansas City to cover the spread there. They had been playing so much better, and had they had a convincing win, I probably would have elevated them to number 1. But the Kansas City Chiefs are 8-1, in spite of not playing their best football throughout the year so far. Remember, it's more important to peak going into the playoffs than it is before. Kansas City hasn't peaked yet, and they're 8-1. That says everything you need to say. Bovada has them at plus 550 to win the Super Bowl. That means they are the odds-on favorites to win the Super Bowl. A lot of respect to the Kansas City Chiefs and what they're doing. but they can get better. The defense can get better. And, you got to respect what Carolina did. They had a nice game plan. Their offense is better than you think it is. Their defense, their main defensive weak, Carolina, was running the ball. And Kansas City, that wasn't really a factor. Kansas City wants to pass the ball. They're comfortable with that. And they won the game. And you know what? It really wasn't in jeopardy. It was a 2-point game at the end of the game. But they were up big before Carolina got a late touchdown. Number 1 on my list, the Pittsburgh Steelers, still undefeated. Look, that was an ugly game. I posted a preview of that game, and I asked for some feedback from Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and they said Pittsburgh they played down to their competition. They're going to let us down, but they also play up to their competition. They are undefeated. It was an ugly game, but they gritted it out against a very hyped up Dallas Cowboys team. That was basically the Dallas Cowboys version of the Super Bowl. Pittsburgh got their best effort. Ben Roethlisberger got hurt. He was banged up. He still came out, finished the game. They won the game. It wasn't convincing, but because the Kansas City Chiefs victory wasn't convincing, I'm going to leave Pittsburgh at number 1 again this week. Again, they're the only undefeated team in the NFL. Now, Bovada, their odds to win the Super Bowl, I can't believe this, are at plus 2,200. Just to recap for people who are coming in specifically for the Pittsburgh Steelers segment, the Pittsburgh Steelers are at plus 2,200 to win the Super Bowl. The Dallas Cowboys, who they just beat, are at plus 1,800 to win the Super Bowl. The Philadelphia Eagles are at plus 1,800 to win the Super Bowl. I don't see it. Pittsburgh Steelers plus 2,200. If you're a futures bettor, that's my favorite bet of the season. And I also like the value that the Cardinals are giving you at plus 5,000. So Pittsburgh Steelers 22-1, bet them up. Arizona Cardinals plus 5,000. Hell, take a flyer on them. Bet them up at 5,000. And the New Orleans Saints, 10-1. That's not great odds, but I like them along with the Buccaneers as well. You're talking about teams coming out from a very wide open NFC. Just pick your best odds. So once again, Bovada has Arizona at plus 5,000, Pittsburgh at plus 2,200, and Seattle at plus 1,800. Those are probably my 3 favorite futures bets. Thanks, everybody, for checking this out. Comment on the power rankings below. Who do you think the top 5 should be? I'd love to hear from you. And that sums it up for me.